Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Humane Voices, the official podcast of the Humane Society of the United States. Carrie and Austin here for another episode. We're here talking about wildlife killing contests. Sounds concerning. It is. But we have some good news for you. But first, Carrie, can you guess where I am? Here?
You look like you're in the office.
I am. I made the trek.
A bold move.
Very bold. I should have my mask on, but we're in the one person room right now, so feeling pretty safe, pretty distanced. So today we have two very special guests to talk about this topic. We have Jennifer Hillman, who is the Vice President of Wildlife Protection, and Jill Fritz, who's the Director of Wildlife Protection at the Humane Society of the United States. And we are very excited to sit down and chat with you both. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So we want to jump right in here. We got some very good news this week about the killing contest, the wildlife killing contest. They were just banned in Washington State, which is great news. But first, want to step back for a second. What is a killing contest? I'm not sure a lot of people even know what those are.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to me that these things still exist. I mean, like that a killing contest sounds like something you'd see in a violent video game. So if you guys can sort of provide some background so people understand like exactly the barbarity of what we're talking about here, that would be great.
Sure. Well, wildlife killing contests are organized events that usually take place over a day or two, in which participants compete to kill the most or the heaviest or sometimes even the smallest animals for cash and prizes. The contest might be judged by weight or by a point system, like 10 points per coyote, 5 points per bobcat, 3 points per fox, etc. Or even by categories, like the coyote with the biggest ears or the quote unquote mangiest mutt. They usually culminate with a check-in or a weigh-in of the animals and the awarding of prizes, and then some kind of a celebration. And the HSUS has conducted several undercover investigations of these killing contests all over the country in New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Oregon, and documented participants joking and killing about cutting open pregnant coyotes, laughing and posing for photos in front of piles of dead animals, and talking about the thrill of the kill, and even young children playing around the piles of dead animals, and even helping to bring them in to be weighed and counted for prizes.
So just out of curiosity, what's the history of these contests? Are these like a new thing, or are these like a historical thing? Have they been going on for a long time?
The earliest killing contest that we know about was back in the late 1950s in Chandler, Arizona. And it was staged supposedly to kill coyotes around livestock ranches. And then they started expanding throughout the West and then into the East, to the point now that we have found wildlife killing contests being held in almost all of the 43 states that still allow them.
What animals are being killed? Is it regional, or are there specific types that are usually participating in this contest?
Well, by far the animals most targeted in these killing contests are coyotes, red and gray foxes, and bobcats. But then you also have rabbits, woodchucks, squirrels, raccoons, rattlesnakes, even wolves in some cases, or mountain lions in states like Texas, where they're an unprotected species.
So what's the argument for the species? Like, is it some sort of, do they claim that these animals are pests or predators? Like, what is the, even if we disagree with the argument, what's the sort of reason for the targeting?
Right. Well, some of the contest organizers will try to market their contest as a test of skill in what they call coyote calling, when they use devices that mimic the sound of prey or even pups in distress to lure coyotes or foxes out for an easy shot. But far more will claim that they are having a killing contest to quote unquote reduce coyote populations, implying that killing coyotes will protect livestock or protect pets or people in the area. And others will call their contests things like the Save Our Fawns Coyote Derby or the Save the Birds Tournament, meaning turkeys, implying that killing coyotes or other carnivore species will yield more deer or more turkeys for human hunters.
Right. So save our fawns so we can kill them later.
Right. That's the idea. Of course,
right.
Both of those rationales are just flat out wrong.
Right.
Science has long established that randomly killing large numbers of native carnivores won't protect or prevent livestock conflicts. It won't protect pets or people. It won't increase numbers of deer or turkeys for hunters. And it won't reduce coyote numbers. In fact, it could even increase them by disrupting the very stable and organized breeding structure that coyote groups have.
So I just want to go back for a second because I believe Jennifer, you're in Washington, and so we got some good news this week about the killing contests. And can we talk about the new rule that was passed and which animals this protects?
Yeah, so I am based in Seattle.
Okay.
Jill and her team worked really hard with our state director, lobbying that commission. The Fish and Wildlife Commission is the group that actually passed that with a vote of 7-2, which was really significant. They worked for, gosh, Jill, 2-3 years on that bill, on that rule. And Jill will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's all fur-bearing mammals in Washington can no longer be part of these killing contests.
Right, the species that are traditionally targeted, like coyotes, fox, bobcat, raccoon, etc.
Okay. Yep. And one of the things, go ahead, Carrie.
No, go ahead, Jennifer, please go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that Jill and the team have seen over the years, which we just find remarkable, is that these commissions are really starting to couch a lot of commission members are hunters themselves, but are becoming more and more opposed to these contests because, they see their job, these fish and wildlife agencies, whether good or bad, to sort of advocate for hunters. Mm. And these contests are, in a lot of their minds, not hunting. These are not ethical. There's no fair chase. When Jill was talking about these artificial calls that they use to bring these animals out of the woods. So for them now, it's becoming more and more, by banning killing contests, they're actually trying to protect sort of the integrity, if you will, of what we often refer to as ethical hunting. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of shining a spotlight on some of the inner workings too, I know that the HSUS and this team specifically has been working to spotlight this very issue through investigations of contests in certain states. That's something that your team, Jill and Jennifer, works and helps with?
Absolutely. And the results of these undercover investigations have really galvanized the public into getting involved in our policy efforts in the states where we want to ban killing contests. For example, most recently, we conducted an undercover investigation in New York State, the second one that we had done there. And investigators saw coyotes being basically tossed into dumpsters or just thrown right outside of dumpsters after they were weighed for prizes. And participants even talked to our investigators about the propensity for cheating for killing contest participants, that they will contest organizers will often threaten to take body temperatures of animals that are brought in to discourage participants from just picking up a roadkill coyote and throwing them in the freezer until the next contest. Or they'll even threaten to make participants take a lie detector test during the judging portion. So these are all practices that, as Jennifer mentioned, so many more hunters now and state wildlife management professionals are pointing out are just an embarrassment and really have no place in modern wildlife management.
So just out of curiosity, I know that there's probably, like when I was thinking through the issue with coyotes and what's created, like the coyote population has spread out from the West, correct? I think that yeah. And so one of the things that struck me here in terms of this sort of discussion around around coyotes is that they're now trying to control an animal who is basically spread the way that species has. Isn't that partially because humans already decimated the population of predators that competed with them in the first place?
That's exactly right. Coyotes are a native carnivore to the western United States. But yes, settlers, as they pushed west in the east, eradicated the native wolves and cougars that were there. And coyotes, being very adaptive and very smart, have migrated east and down from Canada to fill that void and fill that very important role of being that top carnivore in the area.
Yeah, this always just really strikes me how many times sort of humans correct for something terrible we already did by doing something new terrible.
That's right.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Right.
And that brings up another good point that sometimes while killing contest organizers, like I said, will try to rationalize that they are that the humans need to act as the top predators and eradicate any coyotes to make sure that there are plenty of deer for hunting. But state wildlife management agencies themselves, the Pennsylvania Game Commission and many others, have pointed out that it's very clear predator control does not work. If you want healthy populations of deer or turkeys or other species for hunters, you need to have good habitat. But going out and randomly killing those native carnivores that are there to do a job, that just won't work.
And you mentioned, Jill, you mentioned prizes for these contests. Yes. What type of prizes are offered here?
Most often the prizes for killing contests are the cash pot from the registration fees. They can range from $50 a person to $200 or more for 2 or 3 man teams in these contests. And then at the end, the cash pot is distributed to the winners. But sometimes prizes can also include hunting equipment like guns, even AR-15 rifles, ammunition, and the electronic calling devices we mentioned, spotlights or night vision devices that are donated by the sponsors of the contests. They are awarded as prizes. And then they may also have raffle prizes as well. And even some allow sports style betting on the participants themselves.
This sounds like just all warm and fuzzy inside. Sounds like the worst game show I've ever been a part of, right?
Yeah, and it's a really high stakes thing too. In the recent West Texas Big Bobcat contest, there were more than $350,000 in prize money distributed.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
In terms of the sponsors participating, are there sort of equipment companies that refuse to participate in these things? I mean, do we know some of the better actors and worse actors on that front?
Well, I do not know of sponsors or potential sponsors who have said that they will no longer sponsor future contests, but we have seen local sponsors, local restaurants, bars, withdraw their sponsorship from local killing contests when confronted by the public with it. But large mainstream companies like Nikon or Swarovski Optic that also manufacture rifle scopes and other equipment have sponsored killing contests. And then particularly disturbingly, they're also sponsored or they benefit institutions in our society that are supposed to influence our values or be models of civic engagement, like 4-H clubs, the VFW, American Legion, churches, oftentimes volunteer fire departments, middle and senior high schools as well.
So Jill and Jennifer, now with this new rule and this new ban in Washington state, do you feel like you're seeing momentum shifting in the right way? This is not the only state. There are 6 or 7 other states that are participating now in this ban. Are you seeing a momentum shift?
Absolutely. Yes, we absolutely are. And, you know, this, Jill leads this team that not only includes our staff, but is in contact with a lot of our volunteers across the country and just citizens. You know, the way that they find out about some of these contests is by people, you know, going into the local feed store and seeing a poster for these killing contests, and will then contact the HSUS and want to know how to get involved in stopping this. But I think, so much kudos goes to our investigation team too. I think that we really saw an uptick. It's one thing to talk about killing contests and to mention, how they work and what they're about. But when you actually see footage and see the photos that we have generated through our investigations team, people are really quite horrified at the images. And so I think that builds momentum, in addition to the fact that, as we mentioned, it's becoming an embarrassment to Fish and Wildlife commissions and people who are interested in science-based management of wildlife, which the team works, not just banning killing contests, but working to really change overall the way in which fish and wildlife agencies across the country view management of wildlife. And that this is so against science, in addition to how egregious it is. So the momentum is building, both from the public outrage over such egregious events, and also from within the agencies and commissions recognizing that this is just not management of wildlife, much less considered to be anything close to hunting in the traditional sense.
As you mentioned, 7 states have now banned wildlife killing contests, and those states are California, Vermont, New Mexico, Arizona, Massachusetts, Colorado, and Washington State. And Vermont and New Mexico banned those through the legislatures with legislation. But all of those other states, they were banned in the state wildlife commissions by the agencies that regulate hunting and promote hunting in the state. So I think that is a really exciting trend.
Yeah. So the fact that those 7 states are the places where it's been banned, does that mean that the contests are still really prevalent in the other 43 states, or is it sort of mixed across the country?
Well, there are hotspots. There are states that have many more wildlife killing contests than others. For example, on the East Coast, Pennsylvania by far eclipses every other state in number of killing contests, with New York State being a close second. In the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes states, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa are all have many killing contests. And out west, a lot of them concentrated in Nevada. Oklahoma is number 2 in the nation for killing contests, and then Montana.
And is it primarily coyotes with all of those states, or is it a mix of animals, or?
Primarily coyotes in the West, but in the upper Midwest, in Michigan in particular, red fox and bobcats, particularly are many more bobcats killed in Michigan's Upper Peninsula killing contests. And as you saw in our investigation here in Maryland, at a killing contest not that far from the HSUS main office, red fox by far are the animals killed most often in Maryland killing contests, and New Jersey as well.
Wow. So what I really appreciate, and Jennifer mentioned it as well, huge kudos to the investigations team at hitting the root cause and really finding where these contests are happening with the investigations. I know that our team can't be everywhere all at once. So is there a lot of collaboration with local volunteers or local advocates in the area to help with that support?
Well, most often it begins with our state directors, who I can't say enough good things about.
Got it.
They are the boots on the ground. They are there in the wildlife commissions. They're speaking with legislators. They're coordinating our huge volunteer team that we have in all of our states. They're talking with the media, and they're dealing sometimes with kind of unpleasant pushback from people on this issue. It's not an easy issue to deal with, and they just do an amazing job. Most recently, Dan Paul, our Washington senior state director, but all of the state directors in the states where they've been banned have done an amazing job in dealing with all aspects of it, from the volunteer coordination to working with policymakers, working with the media, etc.
So just out of curiosity, I mean, if I'm an average citizen and I find out about one of these things happening near me, I mean, what are the ways that you and your teams have sort of found to be most effective to getting them stopped? I mean, is it a combination of sort of targeting potential sponsors? Is it the legislators? I mean, I can imagine it would be sort of a patchwork thing where you can address the single hunt, but then you can also address it legislatively.
Correct, or at the regulatory level. But the first thing, if you find a killing contest in your area, the first thing you can do is download our toolkit. We've created a very comprehensive toolkit with everything you need. It's at humanesociety.org/killing contests toolkit. The contest is plural there. It has sample letters for you to ask the organizers to cancel the event, ask the sponsors to no longer support them, and to inform the media and the public about killing contests happening in your area. But if you want to take it one step further and try to work on getting a statewide ban on killing contests, then we recommend that you first contact your HSUS state director, because this is a priority issue for us at the Humane Society of the United States, and chances are your own state director is already hard at work on this issue. So you can find them at humanesociety.org/state directors, and they will get you plugged into efforts at the state level.
That's great.
So what does the future look like down the pipeline for 2021 for your department?
I was going to add just that for 2021, we have a really solid agenda moving forward to ban contests. Now we'll be going back to Oregon, back to Maryland, where we were very close to the finish line before the virus kind of took over and thwarted those efforts in both Oregon and Maryland. So we're poised to get those across the finish line in 2021. The team's looking at Pennsylvania, as Jill mentioned. We're also looking at a number of ordinances potentially to pass, but our state bill agendas, as we've seen in these other 7 states now, it can happen at the state level, and that is really obviously the most effective way to cancel contests is to ban them, at the policy level in those states. So we've got almost every day now, as Jill mentioned, the state directors are really excited about this issue. They really want to see the momentum in their state, and so they're contacting the team, asking about looking into legislation. So we've got, Jill, Nevada, Texas, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, New Jersey, Oregon, New Hampshire. We've got a number of states on the radar, that we'll be looking at, are looking at currently, and will be really looking to push forward the agenda in 2021.
And likely several more too.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like every day we have a state director or volunteer leaders coming to us and asking us to look into their state as well.
Do you guys have a sort of list of those states on the website as well, that if people, want to go and check out what they can do locally, they could access?
We encourage people to like and to follow their HSUS state pages, so they can learn about new bills as they're introduced.
And we do have the toolkit, right? Jill is on the
Correct. The toolkit is on our website. And you can go right to humanesociety.org/killing contest toolkit too. But that lists the states that have already banned them. But we can also put on our website the list of states where we'll be working in the legislatures in 2021, New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Maryland, and Oregon.
Well, it sounds like the best option for folks is to be following their state's Facebook page for the HSUS, right? Because that way they'll learn about anything that they can help with coming up.
Correct. That's just facebook.com/HSUS Maryland or
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. Jennifer Hillman, Vice President of Wildlife Protection, and Jill Fritz, Director of Wildlife Protection at the Humane Society of the United States. Thank you both so much for sitting down and chatting with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great conversation. That's all we have for today's show, but big kudos to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife for proposing the rule that passed last week. And as we were mentioning a little bit before, to find out more info on how we are working to make these killing contests a thing of the past, you know where to find us, humanesociety.org. And Jill had also mentioned humanesociety.org/killing contests plural toolkit. Is that correct, Jill?
Correct.
Killing Contests Toolkit. So you can find more information there. Thanks again, and see you next time on Humane Voices.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Thanks.